This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 241, What Makes Content Shareable? Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you grow your tribe and your bottom line through insanely good content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is August 24th, 2017. Hello, or as we say in Texas, howdy, and thank you for joining us for today's episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, this podcast is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play Music, so if you like what you hear, feel free to click on over and subscribe. I also invite you to download our complimentary audio, 5 Things You Must Know About Content Marketing. Download today to learn the 5 things you absolutely gotta know to reap the benefits of a solid content marketing program. To snag your free copy, just go to contentmarketinggift.com. Okay, I want to give a shout out to my peeps from BMA Houston. The local chapter of the Business Marketing Association was kind enough to invite me to speak at their August luncheon last week. We had a fantastic event, and a lot of the folks said they were going to be checking out this podcast. So if you are one of my BMA peeps, I wish you a warm welcome, and I hope you stick around. Also heard from a lot of my Houston peeps after the fact saying, oh, wow, I was so sorry to miss it. Let me know when you're going to be speaking here in town again. Well, let me tell you about my next gig here in Houston, and that is going to be at the IABC Regional Conference in October. It's October 25th through 27th, and I am so excited about this presentation. Check out this title, Rise of the Content Jedi, Your Guide to Building a Culture of Quality. This is going to be so much fun because, as you know, quality is one of my big soapboxes. But this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk about building a culture of quality in your content team. And, of course, we're going to interject a couple of fun Star Wars references in there because y'all know me. I'm queen of the dorks, right? I got to get my geek on while I'm at it. So if you are one of my peeps here in Houston, make sure you check out the IABC Regional Conference, which is going to be here in H-Town this year, and I will be presenting on the culture of quality. Okay, speaking of events, oh my gosh, fall is so busy. Content Marketing World 2017 is just 2 weeks away. Oh my gosh, how did it get here so quickly? And this year I have been invited to serve as a moderator. This year's event is going to be, if you're here in the States, that's the few days after Labor Day, so September 5th through 8th. As always, it will be in Cleveland, Ohio. And as I understand, registration is still open. I think this event does sell out sometimes. So if you are interested in going, you need to reserve your spot quickly. And I also have a promo code that will save you $100 off your registration. What you do is register at contentmarketingworld.com and enter the code RESONANCE100. So that's resonance, all caps, 100. In the interest of full disclosure, this is an affiliate code, and I do receive a small commission on every registration that comes in with this code. So again, the website is contentmarketingworld.com. The code is resonance100, all caps. And if you're planning on being there, please do toss me a tweet at @RachParker. I will, maybe we can arrange to sync up during one of the coffee breaks. I would love to have some FaceTime with you while we are there in Cleveland. Okay, on to the business of the day. Last week we talked about, we were talking SEO keywords and where things stand in 2017 with a very special guest, Brad Shore of Straight North. If you happen to miss that episode, feel free to check it out on iTunes or via the RSS feed. Today, we are tackling a question that has plagued even the most distinguished of content marketers, and that is, what makes content shareable? But first, it's time to check in with our news feed for this week's rundown of news you can use. Now, I gotta confess, I'm usually pretty up on the latest in the social media world, but this one caught me by surprise. I'd heard it was coming, but somehow the actual announcement nearly got past me. And that is this: LinkedIn now supports native video. Finally. previously, if you wanted to share a video on LinkedIn, you had to link externally out to YouTube or SlideShare or Facebook or Vimeo or wherever that video happened to reside. But now you can upload video directly to LinkedIn, and if you're using your mobile device, you can record directly from your smartphone camera. Now, I was so excited. I found out about this last Friday, and I just did a video right then and there. So I was in Friday mode, old t-shirt, no makeup, hair, total mess, but I was so excited. I could not wait to try this feature out and to share it. So if you would like to engage in some native video on LinkedIn, if you're on your desktop, you will see an option, you will see a button that says video in the link in the field where you post updates. So it's right next to the button that says image. And then if you're on mobile, also in the space where you share updates, you will see a little video icon, and you can tap that to either upload pre-recorded video or record directly from your device. So very, very welcome feature from LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, next up is live video. When are you going to do that, huh? They're like, shut up, Rachel. It took us years to get here. Okay, Instagram. A nice feature on the way to you, Instagram folks. According to Social Media Examiner, Instagram will make conversations on posts easier to track and respond to specific users by organizing comments in threads. So instead of having all the comments lumped together, if you comment on a comment, that will actually be threaded, just like it is on Facebook and other networks. Instagram will be rolling out this update worldwide to both iOS and Android devices sometime in the coming weeks. So another very welcome feature, this time over at Instagram. Okay, our content hit of the week is in fact a video. So let's say you're surfing around on the web and somehow you discover, to your horror, that someone has lifted your content and published it on their site. Not simply used some of your ideas or leveraged some of your approaches, but they actually have copied and pasted your content. What do you do? Well, Neil Patel, who always has terrific advice to share, he has some advice which he shares in a very, very brief 2-minute video. And he will show you, number one, the 2 things to look for when it comes to content stealing or content leveraging. One is actually legit, the other is not. And then number 2, what do you do if you discover a case of the non-legitimate, I was going to say illegitimate, but that doesn't sound right, the non-legitimate case of content stealing. And he takes a very basic approach. It's not complicated, and you can get that taken care of and be on your way. Like I said, it's a very quick video, 2 minutes, packed with terrific advice. And if you want to check it out, I will add a link in the blog post for this episode. Okay, that is it for this week's update. If you stumble across something you think would be of interest to your fellow content marketers, please tweet it to me at @RachParker so that we can share. Now it's time for this week's Spotlight segment. What makes content shareable? As content marketers, we get a lot obsessive about our content performance. And we're constantly asking things like, is our content search friendly? Is it long enough? Is it short enough? Did we repurpose it correctly? Are we balancing evergreen content with more current newsjacking type content? On and on and on. And one of the biggest questions that has plagued us since we all set out on this content marketing journey is this: what makes content shareable? What makes content so appealing that the people in our audience not only want to like it, not only want to leave a nice comment, but want to take the time to share it with their own communities and put their name on it and saying, yes, I found this interesting and I think you will too. So that is a question that we've had to tackle. And when it comes to what makes content shareable, we are digging into human psychology here. And, that kind of makes us long for the simplicity of search engine algorithms, right? When we're dealing with how people think and how they determine what to do. So I did some research, and then I'm going to share 10 characteristics of highly shareable content. And I'm approaching it from 2 different angles. So the first is from my personal experience, the things that I've noticed in content that I published that has been shared very often and very enthusiastically. And then the second is from some research that I did among our thought leaders in the content marketing universe. There have actually been some studies about shareable content that I will be sharing from which I will be sharing some tidbits with you. And Sophie is having a little episode. So, Sophie, that's enough. Okay, we're just going to close the door and let her have her little episode here. Okay, the first characteristic is shareable content strikes an emotional chord. So remember, I'm going to pause here while I go correct my pup. Just a second. Okay, so got Sophie calmed down for the moment. Sorry about that. Where were we? Characteristic number 1, shareable content strikes an emotional chord. We are talking about people, and people are emotional beings. And what got me to thinking about this is a recent post that I put out there called The Real Cost of Cheap Content. And it was about a study that was done by another outfit and what they did is they did some research on whether writers who charge more for their services are really worth the price, and whether the cheap writers whether they offer some challenges that makes them not such a great bargain. So this was shared by a lot of content professionals who had a very strong emotional reaction. What I discovered is a lot of these content professionals, they're angry and they're frustrated by how many brands are bypassing the qualified, experienced writers. They're going cheap on their content, and as a result, they're really failing in their mission to deliver content that serves their audience. And they were relieved to discover that there's actual research out there that bolster the claim that you get what you pay for. So that's just one example of content that strikes an emotional chord. And people share things that, okay, we got the cute puppies and cute kitten videos that make you go, aw, and people love to share that. But, that's not the grounds of a content strategy. But think about your audience and think about what strikes them emotionally and what would make them want to not only sit up and take notice, to engage in your content, but also to share it with their communities. Characteristic number 2 is that shareable content is consumable as is, and it is presented in a format that's appropriate to the content. And what I mean by that is, number 1, a 10-part webinar series is not shareable. You can't grasp very, very quickly and very succinctly the content from a 10-part webinar series. And to that point, it's got to be appropriate to the format. So, for example, every day, or actually Tuesday through Friday, I publish a quick tip. I publish it on, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And it's a quick tip that people can get. Like, they can read this or look at the image. I also share it visually and say, okay, I got it. It's not something overly vague that could be interpreted many different ways, that they can't get value out of it just looking at it. So that is appropriate to that format, whereas a 1,200 word blog post should be appropriate to the content you're sharing there. It can't be a 200-word idea stretched out over 1,200. It's got to be appropriate to the format. And again, it's all got to be consumable as it is. Number 3, shareable content is strategically titled. So this is something that I learned with this post that I just mentioned a few minutes ago, The Real Cost of Cheap Content. I had actually covered a different aspect of the same topic a couple of months earlier in a post that was titled, Why You Can't Afford $25 Blog Posts. And it was interesting because there were 2 posts. Now, the content of the post was different, but they covered basically the same topic, the topic of cheap content. But the title, The Real Cost of Cheap Content, perform way better than Why You Can't Afford $25 Blog Post, which is funny because Why You Can't Afford $25 Blog Post plugs in with what we know of best practices in titling blog posts. It includes a number, it's enticing, it poses essentially a question that will be paid off in the content, but lo and behold, the real cost of cheap content outperformed it. So we need to be very careful with our titles. And sometimes when we're creating content, we'll write the content and then it's 5 minutes to publication time. And it's like, oh God, I need a title. Okay. And we just scribble one out and put it out there. But I have heard experts advise that we need to spend as much time and effort on our titles as we do on the content. In fact, some content professionals I know, they will crank out 20 different titles or at least 10 different titles before they decide on the right one. So title writing is an art in itself. It's something we cannot leave to the last minute, something that's just scribbled in place so we can get the content out there. And yes, I have been as guilty of that as anyone, but we need to be very careful with our titles because a title can make the difference between content that is highly shareable and content that is equally good quality, but maybe doesn't perform as well in terms of shareability. Number 4, shareable content is uber useful. It's not just useful. It's not just interesting. It is uber useful. It's something that, oh my gosh, you have answered a question that has been on my mind forever and ever. Thank you so much. Can't wait to share this with my peeps. So I discovered a study that was initiated by Jonah Berger. And if you know Jonah Berger, he wrote a terrific book on how we make decisions. So he worked with the New York Times on a study that we did recently. And what they found was that 94% of users assessed the usefulness of the content to the recipient before sharing. Now, that seems like a no-brainer. People think, oh, is this going to be useful to the people in my hood, in my online hood before they share it? But, think about it. They think about the usefulness, not this is going to make me sound smart, not this is a cute puppy video, not this is something that made me laugh and I think it's going to make you laugh. All that is absolutely valid, but they assess the usefulness. And that brings me back to a quote that Jay Baer put out there years ago, and it's part of my presentation. He says, what if instead of trying to be amazing, you simply tried to be useful, right? So yeah, we can do another top 10 tips piece, probably get some good traffic for that, but don't hold your breath waiting for that content to be shared. We really need to think about the usefulness of our content, not only for the people that we're talking to, but the people that they're talking to. Think about the people in the communities of the people you're trying to listen to, you're trying to speak to, you're trying to connect with, and make sure that your content is uber useful to that those extended circles of audience that we're trying to reach. Characteristic number 5, shareable content is shared in places where your audience hangs out. So part of an effective content marketing strategy, we have to know where our audiences get their content, where they spend most of their time online, where they get certain types of content online. And I found some more research in answering this question. This was a post by Jay Baer on his website where he was reporting on some research by an outfit called Clear Voice. And they looked at shareable content broken down by industry and broken down by topic area. So they found that, this one's no surprise, in the business category, the highest percentage of shares occurs on LinkedIn. That is no surprise, although Facebook is kind of gaining on LinkedIn in that B2B category. Number 2, in the careers category, most shares occurred on Facebook, which was kind of surprising because when I think careers, I think LinkedIn, but actually Facebook is more popular in terms of content shared in the careers category. And then in the beauty, health, and wellness category, most shares occur on Pinterest. And that kind of surprised me. I myself am not active on Pinterest. Of course, I'm more in the B2B realm, so I got to go where my peeps are, right? But yeah, Pinterest is the place to be if you're talking about beauty, health, and wellness. And I know a lot of makeup companies have a lot of success on Pinterest, a lot of jewelry companies. Yes, if you're sharing fitness videos, things like that, Pinterest is the place to be. So the point is, we need to look at our audience and make sure that we understand where they hang out and where they get their content, because that's where they're going to be most likely to share what we are putting out there. Characteristic number 6, shareable content mentions others, particularly influencers. One of the reasons why I love doing expert interviews on this podcast, number one, because I'm lazy and it lets me just ask good questions and let them carry the rest of the show. But no, when I invite an expert on this podcast, I basically double my exposure, because my guest's audience, they will come along for the ride. You know, people who, last week we interviewed Brad Shore. All those folks who follow Brad Shore and Straight North clicked on over and checked out the podcast because, you know, that's our guy. He's being interviewed. So it's a great way by bringing influencers and others in general into the fold of your content. It's a great way to create content that is more shareable. Now, I will caution you, use mentions wisely. You're smart. You're smart people. You know the difference between a sincere, organic mention and a spammy post designed to hijack someone's name and someone's popularity. Just use it very wisely. Don't abuse it. But do look for opportunities to bring mentions, especially of influencers, into your social content and also into your blog content. You know, it doesn't have to be a podcast interview. You can highlight someone's presentation that you heard at a conference, making sure that, of course, you mention them and give credit where it's due and link to the original. But and then another thing you can do, a lot of people are doing expert roundups. So they will ask 20 experts to contribute a quick piece of advice on a particular topic and publish that blog post as a roundup, again, with proper attribution and proper linking. But that can do wonders for broadening your appeal and for broadening your shareability. So remember to incorporate those mentions and those influencers into your content. Characteristic number 7, shareable content is a two-way street. So yes, you want people to share your content, but how are you at sharing others' content? Remember, the content marketing universe is a very much get what you give kind of place, and it's all about conversation. So if you are just picking up a bullhorn and spouting your own ideas, however useful they may be, don't be surprised if you're not getting a lot of shares, because what goes around comes around. Are you sharing other people's content? Are you giving them their boost? And are you wanting those connections to be sharing your content? So, I mean, it's not like a formal, yeah, I'll share yours if you share mine, but it's a tacit agreement in the content universe that if you share other people's content, then others will be more likely to share what you have to offer. Characteristic number 8, this is a big one. Shareable content is unique. It's not Me Too content. It's not another top 10 list of ways to get more likes on your Facebook page. It is unique. Now, people say, okay, you know, Rachel, there are so many people in my industry blogging and doing emails and doing social content about this area. What can I possibly say that is different? And the answer is maybe nothing. But what you can offer is a unique perspective on what is going on and those trends that are shaping your industry. Let me give you an example. About a year ago, I did a podcast, and here was the title: What a Catholic Nun Knows About Storytelling and a Marketing Guru Doesn't. And this episode actually attracted a lot of interest, and a lot of people shared it. Why? Well, not because it was in any way optimized for SEO. Okay, nobody's out there searching, well, you know, I wonder what Catholic nuns, I wonder how the Catholic nuns are doing with their storytelling compared to marketing gurus. I'm going to look that up. No, nobody does that. But what did make it compelling is it represented a unique approach to a familiar topic. How many people are out there talking about storytelling? Tons and tons and tons and tons and tons. Trust me, I've looked. But this offered a unique perspective. And this was just sharing a story of 2 events that I attended in the course of 1 week. One was weekly mass, where a nun got up and shared her story about her mission work, and she was completely compelling. And another was a networking event where some marketing quote unquote guru speaker just got up there and spouted all the amazing things he's done. And, guess which one was the more compelling storyteller? Not hard to guess. But that was the framework within which I presented this perspective on storytelling. And then I shared the takeaways that I got from comparing these two talks. So once in a while, we need to put down our SEO keyword lists and share something that's truly unique and truly genuine, just one of those ideas that just comes to you and that you've just got to share. And the thing about those ideas, yes, they're covering topics that everyone else is talking about, but that particular take on it, that particular blog post, that particular podcast episode could not have come from anyone else because it involves your unique perspectives on a topic in your industry. So if your content is going to be shareable, it has got to be unique. So look for ways, look for opportunities. Sometimes it's that idea that wakes you up in the middle of the night that is going to let you create some beautifully unique content. Characteristic number 9, shareable content gets creative with visuals. So yeah, I subscribe to a stock photo service. I think we all do. But there's no excuse for us to not get creative with the visuals. If you look at the image attached to this podcast episode, I photographed a spot on my screen that showed the share button from Facebook, and I prettied it up a little bit and I put it out there. We've got to get creative with visuals, and we have no excuse not to. We have Canva, we have tons of free photography out there. If you use sites like Unsplash and Pexels and those sites, we have a lot of images at our fingertips, and we have the tools that we need to get creative with them. So to give you an example, a post I published a couple of months ago called Why Inspirational Quotes Are Not a Content Marketing Strategy. And I had some fun with the visuals. Number one, the banner image was just a collage of some of the cheesiest inspirational quotes that I found that people were sharing on the web, and people got a good laugh out of that. And then within the context of the post, I put a photo of me doing a face palm when I searched for content marketing quotes and got a deluge of, quotes about content marketing. Just a simple webcam snapshot of me doing a facepalm, but it took the post to a whole new level. It added a little bit of humor, a little bit of context, and visuals strike a chord with people, and people remember them, and people are affected by them. Again, affected emotionally. So if your content is going to be shareable, look at how you're using visuals. Even if you are looking at using those stock photos, we can crop them creatively, we can collage them creatively, we can combine them and do mashups. We can do all kinds of things, and it does not take a Photoshop expert to be able to do that anymore. Like I said, we have Canva, we have collage programs, we have lots of things at our disposal to let us get creative with those visuals to create highly shareable content. Finally, characteristic number 10, shareable content tends to be positive. Again, going back to this study that Jonah Berger did with the New York Times, where they did a study of 7,000 articles and looked at their shareability. They found that content with a positive theme and a positive tone was much more likely to be shared than negative content. So as you're putting content out there, think about how you're positioning it. Is it a positive spin on the matter, or is it a negative spin? Are you telling people, here are the mistakes that cause people a lot of trouble, here's what not to do? Or are you sharing it positively, saying, hey, if you really want to kill it in this area, here are things that you're going to want to look at. Or if you're reporting on trends in your industry, every trend has an upside and downside. And if you're in the oil and gas industry, I know things are really tough right now, but you can turn that into a positive and say, okay, here are ways to to do what you need to do with the budget that you have, and ways to create an impact and to see results, even if your budget's been slashed and your team has been slashed. So there are ways to turn just about any topic around to the positive. Not that every post needs to be Little Mary Sunshine, but just think about that as you're positioning your content. Like I said, Jonah Berger in the study with the New York Times found that content with a positive theme and a positive tone was much more likely to be shared than more negative. So that is my quick take on the top 10 characteristics of highly shareable content. If you have any questions, or if you want to add to the conversation, or if you have found a best practice with creating shareable content, I would love to hear from you. Please feel free to tweet me at @RachParker. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. We just shared some best practices, otherwise known as 10 characteristics of highly shareable content. And as marketers, we love best practices. We crave best practices. We want to know what the best practices are. And that's all very important. Just remember, every brand is different and every audience is different. So yes, we need to absorb those best practices and we need to test them. We need to try them out. And at the end of the day, what we need to do is look at our own analytics and see what content of yours it is that your audience is sharing most often. And as you look at those frequently shared posts, chances are you're going to see some trends. You're going to see some common characteristics, and they have at least a few things in common. So from there, you can build up your own list of your own best practices and use them to replicate your success and continue attracting those content shares. Okay, campers, that is it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Google Play Music or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it. Also, if you want to learn more about content marketing, you will definitely want to grab a copy of my book, The Content Marketing Coach, Everything You Need to Get in the Game and Win. That is available in book and Kindle format. To learn more about the book and to download a free chapter, visit contentmarketingcoachbook.com. As you know, I always like to leave you with a quote, and today's comes from a man who knows a thing or two about shareable content, and that is Neil Patel. He once said, quote, "There's only one key behind producing great content day after day. You don't need to be the best writer. You don't need to be a top expert, although it can help. You don't need any fancy tools, although they can help also. What you do need is to understand your reader," unquote. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you again next week. Take care.